Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Net Zero Week webinar in partnership with Ideal. Today, we've got Andrew Johnson from Ideal. Welcome, Andrew. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, brilliant. Thanks for joining us today. So just a bit of housekeeping before we start. As we run through the presentation, if you have any questions or comments, there is that button where it says say something nice. And there's also a Q&A button, which looks like a question mark with a speech bubble in it. So if you have any questions or comments, please pop them in there as we go. It'd be great to hear from you, and we'll answer those back in the chat box. So let's introduce you to our speaker today. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Ideal, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. So I'm training director for Group Atlantic, of which Ideal is one of the brands within our group, one of the larger brands. I look after all of the training centres that we've got across the UK. We've got a number of digital training options, some I'll touch on today as well, which has become a bigger part of what we've done in the last few years. And yeah, I got the privilege of looking after the team that presents training to our industry.
And then today, yeah, we're looking at how to become a heat pump installer. Is this, the industry is always talking about kind of heat pumps. It's an emerging market, but it's also an established market. Is this
Absolutely.
a kind of real hot topic that installers are coming to you as the manufacturer and saying this is what we want to get involved in?
Yeah, so we've been involved at kind of a decent scale, I guess, with heat pump training for the last kind of 3 years, I would say 3 to 4 years. And what we've tried to include in this presentation is a lot of typical sort of questions or queries that we get from predominantly existing gas heating installers, and it's to help them answer, I'm a successful gas heating installer as I am today. What are the pragmatic steps I can take to become installing heat pumps either now or in the future? And also all the things that we get asked around, what kind of registrations would I need? Can I do servicing? Do I need F-gas? So on and so forth. It's those sort of questions we're looking to answer today as best as we can.
No, perfect. So, yep, I'll hand over to Andrew for the presentation. As I said, if you do have any questions or comments about any of that, like pragmatic steps or MCS or, yeah, all of those, please drop them where it says say something nice. So over to you, Andrew, for your presentation.
Great. Thanks, Joe. So just to begin then, as an overview, what we're looking to cover just in a little more depth. Just going to start really with people's existing experience and prior qualifications, etc., because we recognise that everybody joins us for training at a slightly different position in terms of the stage they're at within the career, how much they may or may not have done with heat pumps. So we just talk about that, how that's relevant really. So not everybody needs exactly the same journey to get them to where they want to be. There's a number of prerequisite qualifications that in terms before you embark on a heat pump qualification that's recognised. There's some tickets that you need before then or industry experience or qualifications. So I'm just going to run through that briefly. And then really the biggest part of the presentation is sort of what's included in your heat pump training typically. What would you expect to cover as part of a heat pump qualification? The kind of big picture, if you like, the modules that's included within that, and then I kind of just drill down a little bit into a bit more detail of what that would look like on your typical training journey. We then always get asked a lot of questions of, right, I've finished my heat pump qualification now, what next? Where do I go? What do I do? So I cover a little bit around that, which includes competent person schemes and MCS, etc. And then last but not least, a little bit in terms of more advanced training options really. So for maybe heat pump engineers that are already out there installing, we get asked a lot around the more service maintenance side of things or advanced fault finding. So I've just got a little bit to cover those sections as well for us, Joe. So to begin with then, in terms of prior experience, I guess one of the really common things that we find is a real diverse mix of installers, engineers that come to us for training. So we've obviously got some people that are relatively new into the career. They may have started 2, 3, 4 years experience through to people that have been doing it 30, 40 years plus sometimes and looking to transition to heat pumps. And what is common with all of those people is they'll have a real mix of obviously experience, qualifications. So we just try to inform people of what's going to be most useful for them. So not everybody goes through the same heat pump journey, but also to recognise any I guess parts that could be developed that are not necessarily just applicable to heat pumps, but are probably more broadly heating knowledge, heating experience. And just some of the common things we kind of see with that is I put a Combi as King badge on the boiler there because, you know, we all know combis have been a massive part of the industry for 20 years, if not more of that. We've taken many years taking airing cupboards out of houses, making bathrooms bigger, and a pressurized combination boiler system at high temperature, typically with an on-off control, has been a sort of mainstay of our industry for a long time. Householders wanted it, builders wanted it, the kind of industry wanted it really. And with heat pumps and systems in general, we're seeing that obviously shift now to a low temperature style of design. We're introducing hot water cylinders back into homes a lot with heat pumps now. And what that does is mean that some installers or some engineers either need an upskill, they may become a little bit rusty in some of those things if they have predominantly been doing combination boiler install for a long time. So it might be around system design, pipework configurations. It might be around control strategy or the wiring of those controls. Or it might be just a simple refresher on unvented hot water and from an installation point of view and not just a service and check. So the starting point, really, none of those are specific just to heat pumps, but it's just a nudge for some people to look at. If any of those parts would benefit from a refresher or an upskill, all of those are available, generally speaking, from any independent training centre or manufacturer's training facility. And it's just worth considering where you're at with that before you embark on heat pumps, because some of that might need, like I say, refreshing or topping up just a little bit. So in terms of then beginning the starting point really for heat pump qualifications, most people, I think it's fair to say, will want to choose a heat pump qualification or course that's going to be recognised by MCS ultimately. And whether you're looking at being an MCS company or not to begin with, if you're self-employed, if you're looking to set up that, or that might be something further down the line that you're looking at, it's generally good to get a qualification that is recognised by MCS on their approved training course list, because that'll just be one less issue really later down the line if you do decide to go down that route. So if you look on the MCS website, it's pretty easy to find. They've got a list of approved courses that I've just done a screenshot of the bottom there. You can filter by heat pumps, and that will basically list every type of qualification that is recognised by MCS at this point in time. It can update or add things added time to time, so it's worth just going to that as the source of information for which qualification's good to choose. But in terms of what the MCS are looking for, really, if a company or an individual is looking to get their company accredited and to become an MCS recognised installer, it's three key things really on that left-hand side. So the starting point, quite understandably, is has that company got a person what they would recognise as a nominated technical person, or the lead technical person, if you like. Has that company got somebody with sufficient background and industry experience to be able to know what they talk about in simple terms? So typically for a heating engineer, that would be a recognised apprenticeship, that would be a minimum number of years within the industry, or a qualification that's recognised within the industry, typically an apprentice route, etc., with an NVQ or equivalent in a heating field. So that's the starting point. And that's a prerequisite then, what they look for, or what qualification providers look for people entering into a heat pump qualification, just to stop anybody being able to do that. So they'd look for either a demonstrable number of years experience and or a qualification, as mentioned, an NVQ, etc. So that's stage one. Most people that work in the industry now as a heating installer would have those. And the only other thing that's a prerequisite then of a heat pump qualification is to ensure that people have got a relevant water regulations qualification, either as a standalone qualification or something that was included in their NVQ if that was done more recently. So those are the two bits that you'd need as a starting point. And then once you've got those parts, you can then register for a heat pump qualification of your choice that's on that list provided by MCS. Finally, which I'll come on to a little bit later in this presentation, but once you've then done your heat pump qualification, the final stage would then be to get independently assessed of MCS by a competent person scheme, but I'll cover that a little bit later. So in summary and basics, you need your craft apprenticeship or qualification, and you need your water regulations prior to going on to a heat pump qual. So once you've selected your heat pump qualification, The ones we run at Ideal are certified by BPEC, and the modules that I'm displaying now on the screen are predominantly how we structure our course. So all of the qualifications will follow a similar path in terms of outcomes and content, but this is just how we organise our training delivery of it in terms of modules to walk people through the qualifications simply today. So to begin with, there's 8 modules in total, and just to walk you through each of these briefly, is we start off really with why heat pumps as a beginning message, really. Why are we doing this shift from boilers across to heat pumps, and what's the government's drive behind that as well with the targets that the UK government are setting. So we're looking at how they benefit carbon reduction, which obviously then in turn benefits our environment in the longer term. And then following on from that, we cover the real basics of what actually is a heat pump, how does it work. A big part of that is the thermodynamic cycle, which is common across heat pumps, fridges, air conditioning, etc. And again, the common components of that are within that cycle. So we just start off with the real benefits. What is a heat pump? How do they work? And what sort of different types of heat pumps are they? We then look to a really important part of heat pumps is understanding and how you compare a heat pump's performance to any other type of heat generating device, and equally how you compare one heat pump across to another. So we look at what sort of measures are used and how do you interpret those measures if you're looking at a product specification sheet or the instructions. Module 3, we then move on to sort of the kind of nuts and bolts for an installer, really, in terms of if you're looking to install one of these into a property, like a boiler, what are all the common requirements that you would need to consider in terms of the positioning of the property, how it might impact performance, where you choose to install it, the considerations for the homeowner in terms of convenience, noise, etc., boundaries, all of the things that we're used to doing with gas boilers, but relevant to the heat pump product itself. A lot of that is very much scenario based. So rather than just sit and tell, we then generally get you to look at a range of different appliances, different scenarios, and then do like you would do with fluid positions, etc. Look is what is acceptable and what's practical and what's not. Included with that as well is electrical supply, which is obviously really important for heat pumps in terms of what are the minimum requirements you would need for that. We then move on to an introduction to MCS. So that covers really an explanation of what MCS is and its purpose. Really importantly, do you need MCS or not, depending on your role within a business or the role within your own company. And what benefit MCS brings our industry and how you would go about joining them as a high level introduction to that organisation and schemes. And then module 5, again, quite a detailed, in-depth module, but we talk about heating system design for heat pumps, which, as I mentioned earlier, with our kind of tendency for the last few years for high temperature heating on a combination boiler system, there's quite a lot of new learnings or a lot of good refreshers in there for people. So we start off with the basics of heat loss from any property. We then look at how you size your heat equipment in that property, your emitter sizes, pipe sizing, and so on and so forth. Within a general heat pump qualification, it's probably worth pointing out there's only a limited amount of time that we've got to do that within the qualification. So we cover all of the basics. We go over that at a high level point of view and give some practical demonstrations. But we do offer a separate system design course on its own for those people where some of this might be new or they might want a much more in-depth refresher. So we offer a low temperature system design course that runs over 3 days, which does all of those things, like I say, at a much deeper level and allows us to go into specifics at a much deeper level as well. And then moving on, we go on to electrical supplies and in more in-depth in terms of control principles. So how do we move from traditional on-off controls to all of the options that we've got available to heat pumps? A lot of the things that people are aware of, we just try to break down and simplify in terms of having heat pumps on for a more low and slow principle as terms of on and off, and all the options around that again. So when you're looking at choosing on specifying your heat pumps going forwards, you can look at what practically makes the difference, what might give you a more higher upfront install cost but benefit the homeowner or end user longer term, and allows you to make an informed decision really in terms of what control strategies and options you want to give, not just for the install, but how you'd set that up and inform the end user as well. And that leads on nicely to commission an end user then really, despite how well you would do the installation, we really focus and give you a lot of practical chance to do this whilst you're in our centre in terms of how you set that heat pump up for maximum efficiency, but also the sort of conversations you need to have with the end user in terms of their choice for lifestyle and comfort versus efficiency, because there's always a little bit of a trade-off there, and we try to pragmatically explain and demonstrate that. And then last but not least, life is never without troubles, is it? So we always cover a little bit of troubleshooting and kind of common queries with heat pumps. That might be things that we see commonly when people come to install a heat pump for the first time, or that might be more further down the line, the sort of faults or questions that you could expect. That may be a product fault or a system fault, or it may just be an end user misinterpretation or misunderstanding. It's obviously a new product for their home, so we cover that in quite some depth as well. But like I say, limited within a qualification, there is more of that can follow at a later stage. So at the end of that, it's for us, when we deliver this course, we generally deliver that over a week with, we offer the water regulations qualification on the first day of that week for any installers that might need that. We generally do that on the Monday, and then we run through this course Tuesday to Friday. Lots of theory, lots of hands-on application as well, a good blended mix, but quite an intense week there going through the modules, but try to break it down so it's logical and bite-sized throughout the week. And successfully completing all of that, there is a practical assessment as part of that week. There is some multiple choice and open paper tests. Nothing daunting. Most people complete that quite successfully, but completing that week will then give you your air source heat pump qualification, which will be recognised on the MCS list. Leading on from that, and I'll come on to MCS shortly and competent person scheme, but then leading on from that, that is really, I think it's really important and honest to stress at this point, that is generally the foundation for most existing heating installers. So that gives you a good broad overview knowledge of heat pump technology. It's not intended to, and nor I don't think anybody would expect that would make you an absolute expert within that week. So what we generally advise there is, for those that need it, there is a bit more system design training out there available. There's lots of people doing really good stuff as well as what I've mentioned. So you can spend as long as you want, to be quite honestly, in that. It's a real meaty subject to go into if you wish. But we recognise equally some installers won't necessarily always get installed on the design. They'll be installing to a set design given to them. So again, there's flexibility there as to whether you choose to do that or not. But I think product training is then really important to top up, regardless of whether you are designing, installing, or just commissioning at the ends the heat pump of your choice. All manufacturers will offer this. Most of them will offer it for free. They will offer it either in person, where you can go to the centre and get hands-on practice with the controls, or a lot of people offer this digitally as well, where you can do it either via a live virtual session or pre-recorded videos. But I would really stress the value and importance of that, as I think any manufacturer would. Really understanding how the kit that you're choosing should be set up to its optimum, and really understanding all the intricacies, if I can get my words out there, I think is really value add. And we normally see anybody that comes for that training see the value at the end of it, and probably picked up things that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise have appreciated before coming on the course. And then I guess next steps really. So once you've done your qualifying, once you've decided to do your product training of choice and system training, if you decided you needed a little bit more of that, this will really depend on then in terms of your personal circumstances. So I guess in terms of MCS certification, and if you need that or not, if you're an employee or you're working on behalf of an existing MCS registered company, you're generally not going to need that. That's already done for you. So what a lot of companies will now look for is the installers or the engineers working on systems on their behalf. more and more people are looking to see, have they got this base level of competence, basically, in terms of recognised heat pump qualification and some type of manufacturer's installer relevant to the kit you're going to be working on for them. So if that's you, you don't really need to worry about MCS at that stage. If you're a sole trader, however, or you've got your own business, there's two choices there really to make. And a popular choice for a lot of installers, or is seeming to becoming more popular at the moment, is you can join a heat pump scheme, or there are services out there where you can pay a company on your behalf to do some of the administration and compliance that's required by MCS. So there's various ones out there. I won't name them. A quick Google search will help you pick them. But that's anything from, you can be passed a job from one of those schemes and you basically look after the installation and take the payment for the installation part of the role. Or there's more involved parts of that where you also get involved in site surveys, design, and install, commissioning. There's a real choice out there. And you can have a look at those choices, but that's often a good stepping stone for a lot of smaller independent companies that are looking to get involved in heat pump installation work, but don't necessarily want to jump in and take on the cost and effort involved in MCS registration for themselves at that time. However, if you are looking and you're confident that you've got heat pump work coming down the track and you're thinking MCS certification is right for you, you can then go on a journey to begin to get your MCS accreditation. And there's two options there. You can either go to get the full accreditation that allows you to design heat pump systems and install them, or you can choose just to do the design element or just to choose the install element, depending on what elements your business is going to be offering as a service. For most sole traders, that might be both, or smaller companies, SMEs, that might be both. So you would, with this qualification, you would look to apply via a competent person scheme. And again, there's a few out there to choose from, which are listed on the MCS website. They will basically do an independent assessment of a few things for your organisation. Have you got the competence requirements? Have you got a quality management system in place? And ultimately, they're looking for a good, robust verification that you're going to be offering a good service to end customers on behalf of the MCS certification, which in turn then allows you to apply for the government grants. To apply for the government grants on behalf of a homeowner at the moment would require MCS certification, and to get MCS certification requires you to be part of a competent person scheme. So there's loads of really useful information on that, and it's kind of a presentation in itself. So I won't go into that in more detail today. But if you go onto the MCS website or search competent person scheme, there's loads of great information out there to help you understand that in more detail. And then lastly for me, really, Joe, just to cover off today is, again, looking at levels of experience, really. We know there's lots of great companies out there doing MCS or heat pump work already and are now looking for the next stage. There's heat pumps growing in volume, and obviously with that there's going to be a growing part of our industry looking after servicing and maintenance work of heat pumps. I think it's fair to say there's a shortage in supply of labour for this at the moment, and a lot of homeowners do struggle to find a company that will even turn up to do a service work if it's something that they've not installed themselves. So it's a growing part of the industry, and we need to future-proof ourselves as an industry to be able to offer that. It's not necessarily something everybody will do from day one. It's probably something you want to build your experience and move into. But we and others offer, I guess, more advanced courses in advanced fault finding of heat pump systems, and that's more often more in depth on the control side of things, but generally speaking, more in depth in the heat pump operation itself, the refrigeration circuit of that heat pump. And with that, if you're going to be looking to swap or change components, even in a monoblock system, you're going to be looking at doing an F-gas qualification and training. You may be then involved in doing pipe work and brazing on the refrigeration if you're looking into getting to split systems, or even air conditioning for that matter. You might be looking into gaining some experience or qualifications in pipe work and brazing. Flammables, which obviously involves R290 and propane gases, is becoming a bigger part of the heat pump product portfolio as well. there's particular safety concerns or working methods that we would want people to be aware of that. So there's courses, short courses involved for that as well. So there's a real mix there to do, which would help you again grow your business or grow your skill set into the maintenance and diagnostics side of things in that part. We ourselves at Ideal Heating have set up our own F-gas training centre and accreditation centre, and again, there's other people doing great work around the UK with that as well. So that brings me to the end, Joe. I think the only thing I'd like to say from our point of view at Ideal, we've got centres around the country that offer a range of all of those things that I spoke about. Some of that we're pleased to be able to offer at a really low or no cost, depending on the size of your business, through schemes like skills boot camps or the heat voucher scheme. But that's the end of my presentation, Joe. Thanks for that. Open and look forward to answering any questions now.
No, thank you very much. If you guys, like I said, if you've got any questions or comments, pop them in the chat box or the ask a question button, and we'll get those answered in the chat box for you. I've got a couple of questions. It's a bit of a how long is a piece of string, but for people who want to get involved in this, who might be like traditional gas engineers, how long do you think this would take if you go, okay, I'm going to get into renewables, I'm going to go down the Ideal route, I'm going to come to you guys, I'm going to get me a week's worth of training, maybe do a bit of product courses, and then obviously you've got to find the job and all that sort of stuff. But how long is this sort of transitional process? Is it a year, 6 months, 2 months? What would you think?
Well, from a training point of view, if I take that part first, because I think finding then the work or doing that
it does depend, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think from a training point of view, our most comprehensive and longest course, if you like, is we offer a 2-week program, which week 1 is the more in-depth part of system design for heat pumps and low temperature systems. So we cover that over 3 days in week 1. We then generally suggest people take a 2 to 3 week break to handle life and work and everything else. And then they would come back to us and complete the heat pump qualification in week 2 and the water regulations if they need it. So it's spaced over two weeks, but that's 8 days worth of training. And then if they choose to use our products, which we obviously hope they would, but if they choose to do that, we then offer a number of options with that really. But what is a really popular option is a 1-day product course where they'd come back to our centre, do the product training, and that gets them in a very good, solid foundation knowledge, ready to go out and start installing the products and designing systems. In terms of finding the work, or I guess generating that for their business if they're an SME or sole trader, because of all those different options that are available of how you do that, I guess that's a difficult one for me to answer. What I would say is what we're seeing from our consumer phone lines in Ideal Heating, we are starting to see more people phoning us and asking us if we can recommend a heat pump installer in the area.
Okay.
And I'm sure others are getting the same at the moment, because homeowners are looking for that advice. They are looking to manufacturers and service providers. So even if it's a slow start now, I think that's going to become quicker as it goes into next year and the years beyond.
So on the product course, what does it include? Does it include all of your because within Ideal, you do the whole suite of products, and you do the heat pumps themselves, you do the cylinders, controls and all that sort of stuff. So is it a real deep dive into all of those? What options are available? Which ones to pick for which type of property and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, on our heat pump products in the domestic space, so we do commercial products as well, but I guess I'll concentrate on the domestic space for simplicity. We offer 2 main product types. One is a monoblock system and one is a split system. The monoblock system is by far the most popular choice in the UK market. So that's our Logic Air product. And our 1-day training course in centre will generally begin with the overview, the options for the outdoor units, the cylinder choice. We've got 16 different configurations of cylinder that may include inbuilt buffers, low loss headers, etc., or just bare cylinders. And then really important, the controls and the wiring. So we take people through an introduction to the products, why you might choose which one for different scenarios. But then basically we'll let people really get the hands-on with the control side of it, because most people are generally okay with the pipe work side, the clearances and all that type of thing. It's generally hands-on, playing with the controls, setting it up for a different set of scenarios, and letting people also have a go with wiring the systems as well if they want to do that.
So then, if you follow this kind of journey, we've done that, and then I'm confident now. I've got my first job. I'm going off to install it. What sort of advice or technical help do you offer for people putting in their first one to make sure they've got it right? That, those configurations for the controls, they've picked the right cylinder, they've picked the right size heat pump. Is that something that you guys offer as well?
Yes, we offer a few parts with that really. We offer like a quick quote design tool, if you like. So that gives a very, very rough and ready indication of what sort of size heat pump might be needed, just purely from an indicative pricing conversation to have with a customer at that point. So they can make an informed choice of if that's a route that they want to go down. If we're then moving on to a detailed design, depending on sort of what size job, etc. it is, we do offer a design service. We're looking at how we can make that broader in the industry, because it is obviously difficult for us to design every single install, etc. So at the moment, we generally offer to the new build and specification market, but we are looking at how we can widen that to the more one-off type installs. And then we've got a great service team sat behind us. So we've got a dedicated customer service desk for heat pumps alone. As part of that, we have trained qualified heat pump engineers that offer video remote calls. When engineers go out to do the first install, we'll offer the first commission as free on-site commissioning support.
Okay.
And what we're finding with the video calls is we're actually successfully, over nearly 75% of the time here, we can answer most questions at the end of a video call in like 20 minutes. That's getting rid of that wait for an engineer to visit site, because most of the questions generally are the normal sort of queries in terms of wiring, terminal locations, control setup. So that's something we had a real success on really with the after sales service part of that.
And it gives the kind of engineer a bit of a safety blanket as well when they're doing the first one, because when you do more, you're going to get into the swing of things, aren't you? Just like everyone did when condensing boilers came in. So it's that sort of like, we're going to help you do all the preparation for this, and then we'll help you with your first couple. We're always there if there's any sort of questions or queries, and then you're away essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the worst in the world for this. I'll go through a training course, and we all know that you forget things as you leave, and I'm probably one of the worst for that. It falls out way quicker than it goes in the other. But we try to provide as much follow-on support material that engineers can take away with them. But yeah, we really recognise those first few jobs. It is different. It's nothing overly complex, but it is different. So we've got that after sales service. We've also trained our entire sales team nationally. They're all qualified in heat pumps as well. So if anybody's already got an existing relationship with a local area sales manager or key account manager, those guys are pretty well placed to answer those questions as well and help with the typical sort of install queries that we get.
And then, so what's your kind of advice? Because like you said, we're going into heating season. Small businesses, SMEs who are installers are still very busy. They're still fitting boilers. They're still keeping people warm, keeping the hot water on, which is especially like in November, December is very important. What's your kind of advice for them to start this journey? Because a lot of them, again, are very busy. They're at kind of capacity. Maybe they're thinking they don't need to. What's your advice for this?
Taking all that into account, we fully recognise, particularly if you're, small business, sole trader, it's extremely difficult to take, 2 weeks or a week out of work to do this type of training. I would say, firstly, just take a little bit of time to understand as and when you feel that this is the right time for you, you understand what the journey is, so you can plan that in. I'm not trying to predict the future here, but obviously there's quite a lot of government funding available for training at the moment. As the market tends to upskill itself and more becomes available, you could probably take an educated guess some of that funding might become harder to get or lesser. So maybe while the funding's there, probably look to do it sooner rather than later if that helps you financially. We're really cautious that obviously for most sole traders it's loss of earnings while they're out training as well as managing the customers. So things like the fully funded program is something we're really quite proud to present. Really, that there's a lot of quite expensive training available, absolute free of charge for installers. So whilst it's there, if you can grab it, I would say would be my advice.
No, brilliant. And then, so how can everyone watching this think, okay, I'm going to go now, I'm going to take advantage of this funding and this offering? What's the kind of, what's the first steps? Is it website? Is it through their rep? Is it how?
So from our point of view at Ideal, if you go onto our installers page on our website, there's a section there for training, which will give you a contact email and some of the information. The brochure there's on the website. So we can give you a call back. We can talk through those options if you drop us an email. Equally, speak with your area service manager, area sales manager, if you've got their contact details. We're more than happy to sit and have a conversation to go through all the different options. And outside of ourselves, the Heat Pump Association's website is really useful. The MCS website is really useful if you want some impartial kind of information. Certification providers like BPEC that we use is also really useful. Just yeah, spend a little bit of time doing a bit of internet searching for yourselves as well. But we're more than happy to guide people through that once you've got a few questions as well.
No, perfect. So that will kind of round off the session. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Thank you for Andrew for the presentation. Sounds very good. We'll see if we can drop some of those links in that chat as well that they can easily kind of follow up on. But yeah, this one is going to be available to watch on demand. So as soon as we finish, it's going to turn into like a YouTube playback button. So like Andrew said, if it just falls out of your brain, you can go back, rewind, fast forward, and all that sort of stuff. So also, please feel free to send this on to any of your friends and colleagues that also might benefit, because they'll still be able to sign up, log in, and watch it all back on demand. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. And thank you, Andrew, for your presentation.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, everyone.